Well, the shipment I've been waiting for just arrived. Let me show you what I got. It's that weird bayonet fitting that seems to be standard for campers. This is both parts, the male side and the female side, I guess you could call them, like the hook versus the prong. I don't really know. I only need one of those because basically I just need something to connect to the camper side. Let me walk over there and show you. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because I have this pop-out deployed. But basically, right there is facing the complete opposite side of where the septic is. So after I adapt it to 3-inch PVC using that bayonet adapter, I'm going to use 2 of these to essentially U-turn it back over there. So once it's U-turned, I'm using Schedule 40 PVC pipe, just the standard thick wall stuff that is typical for plumbing. Right here, I have a little cap and this little sleeve. Hang on, let me put this back in real quick. Get the sleeve off. There we go. I just had that to keep dirt out of it. So I'm going to put another one of those 90-degree Fernco rubber fittings here. It's going to turn it that way. So these pipes will go straight across. You can see I left the fitting over there where the outlet is. I think it's about 14 feet. So I only need 1.5 pieces of pipe here. So I'm going to get this going. And then hopefully, if everything works, I can stop paying for the porta potty, which we've had. You probably can't see it. Way down there past the truck, over near where I keep the lawnmower parked. I keep it down there because that's where it was delivered before we had any idea of what we were going to build or where we were going to build it. And that was the best place to keep it out of the way. I'm going to get started now. Hope you enjoy. I'm starting the plumbing for the camper by attaching a threaded adapter to the top of this cleanout. This is what essentially turns it into a cleanout because you can put a cap in it and have it removed by a plumber for servicing or any number of things. But what you can see that I'm doing here is putting a threaded piece into that and then extending it up with a Fernco fitting that angles at 90 degrees towards the camper. This way, not only can I unscrew the cleanout, but I can also remove the Fernco. So that's 2 methods of removal, and I would have to take both of those off if I wanted to cap it off and turn it back into a standard cleanout. So moving in the opposite direction, about 14 feet or so, I have to figure out how to convert the straight pipe into the bayonet fitting that all campers come equipped with. You saw those adapters earlier that I bought. So my first step was to glue a little 3-inch piece of pipe to that bayonet adapter and then make a U-turn out of a couple of these Fernco fittings and another 3-inch piece of pipe. Basically, anytime I'm coupling fittings together directly, I need this little 3-inch piece of pipe just as a means of connection, even if you won't actually see that. The only problem I ran into here was the U-turn was a bit too sharp, and I had to gradually taper it back off with a 45-degree PVC fitting. You can see me adding that here, and it gets it approximately towards the plane that it needs to get to go to where the cleanout enters the ground. But because the Fernco fittings are all flexible, I was able to bend it just a couple more degrees to get this last coupler in place. I always struggle gluing pipes together of this diameter. I can't actually wrap my hand all the way around the pipe to get enough leverage to pull the 2 pipes together. So you can see how I try to use my foot. Here's a close-up of the work, and it's only a matter of time before we start testing this out to make sure there's no leaks. All right, everyone, now is the moment of truth. I'm using our temporary rain barrel here to fill up a watering can. You can see I actually didn't leave enough room to fit a full can under there, but we have this funky little watering can with an opening on one side, which is perfect for laying down
to fill up with water. You can only fill it up about halfway before it starts overflowing, but this will get the job done. I just need enough to flush down the toilet, essentially. This camper recently survived a trip across the country, and who knows what happened to the toilet during that transition. This is a residential toilet. It's not really meant to be jostled around as much. So I wouldn't be surprised if something was wrong with it, but this is the best way to test it. Now that I have the pipes connected, the water should flow seamlessly into the septic tank as long as nothing's wrong. You can see here there is still water in the tank from thousands of miles away from where this camper moved here from. That's why it's strapped to the wall like this. Flushing the toilet, the water goes down, and there's a leak. You can see it in the bottom of the screen.
As you might expect, I was pretty disappointed to find out that this toilet was completely shattered. I pulled the toilet up after undoing the screws, of course, and set it aside. And I haven't touched any of this yet. As you can see, the P-trap that's built in, cast in to the porcelain of the toilet is right here. So when I flushed the toilet, the water went everywhere. Not only was it falling through the bottom of the camper, which is how I noticed it, but also it was slipping across the floor here, and I had to dry it up with some paper towels. I'm glad I didn't actually use the toilet for its intended purpose for flushing. Otherwise, it could be probably a stinkier mess. So let me try to clean this area up a bit and get this ring off and see what the condition is of the toilet flange. Alright, I'm gonna have to go get an impact driver, come back for the rest of these screws. Alright, as you can see, the toilet flange is now disconnected from the subfloor, and it's free floating. That's because the pipes underneath have been replaced with those rubberized flexible fittings that you saw me use outside. I think they're called Fernco fittings. So I need to go down and take the pipe clamp off of the Fernco fitting so that this can be pulled out from the top. All right, I'm down here under the camper. I don't know if I can really get into the frame. So bear with me as I disconnect this. Put the strap loose. All right, I ended up removing the clamp from there, here, and here. That way I can remove this entire assembly. If you can tell, it looks like this is a bit lower than over there. So when I replace all of this, hopefully I can maintain the proper slope towards the outlet that I've already hooked up for the septic tank. So let's see if I can pull this off without getting too dirty. Got it. Whew. That wasn't too difficult.
I'm confident now that I can get the plumbing put together the right way, so I'm comfortable removing this toilet flange. Unfortunately, I can't pull it up through the floor, so I need to cut the flange off. Well, that worked way better than I expected. It was nice that I was able to pull the flange up a couple inches to fit my tool underneath, but here's a close-up of the empty cavity that remains between the two different subfloors. This is accessible from the outside here. You can see the hatch. I need to move some of these materials out of the way to do the rest of the plumbing, but it shouldn't be too difficult, especially since I don't have to lay down on the ground to do the plumbing. So real quick, I just need to remove this piece of pipe. I've cut it off on both ends and it's free floating just here in the hatch, but because of the bends in the fittings, I can't actually get it through without taking it apart. So I'm loosening the pipe clamps on the Fernco fittings.
All right, as you can see, I set in the toilet flange here, the new one that I had sitting around in a box. I bought a few toilet flanges for the shed, and I knew not all of them would fit, but I kept the other ones on hand just in case I needed them. This one is an offset flange. It may not necessarily be needed in this application, but what I did notice is that it only fits in one way because there's a structural board right here that's right at the edge of the hole. So I think I'm going to stick with this, but I'm going to have to get some angled fittings to get over to the hole because the flange comes down here and then the offset hole is over here.
So here I'm unboxing the toilet. I've installed one toilet before in my life, and I know it's not that difficult as long as the toilet flange is installed correctly. This toilet came as a kit, which means it has all the components that you need to have a fully functional toilet, all except for the water line, which was already in place. I secured the wax ring to the base before I flipped the toilet over, just as the instructions dictated. Then I assembled the rest of the toilet. The most difficult part was those two little screws that go into the flange. But here's a close-up of the finished result. And this is a 10-inch rough-in toilet instead of a 12-inch because campers have 11-inch clearance from the wall to the center of the toilet flange. Now that the toilet's done, I can focus on the water lines. Not much to do here. It is a pretty fun project because I get to use a lot of different tools. You can see what I'm doing here is connecting a 3/4 inch galvanized pipe that's about 4 feet long. I'm putting a T-fitting on one end and a 90 on the other. The 90 will be buried underground where it ties into the PEX, which would get water from the shed, which gets water from the well. And the T-fitting will stay above ground with 2 spigots on it. I figured there's no use in just having one spigot, which would be tied up full-time by the camper. I should put 2 spigots on there so we can use another one for washing hands or using the hose or any number of things. But in order to install this, I need to dig a hole deep enough to bury the galvanized pipe at the same depth that the PEX is already buried at. There's no need for gravel here because it's not a frost-free hydrant. In fact, I'm going to install a ball valve inside the shed to this dedicated line so we can turn it off during freezing conditions. I am hammering this T-post down very low. I don't want it so high that people start to bump their hands on it while they're trying to turn on and off the water. So this is sufficiently low. And now I'm ready to attach the galvanized pipe to it. I'm going to use this scrap piece of foam packaging. It's not really rated for insulation. I'm just trying to keep it protected from the abrasive edge of the T-post. Some heavy-duty zip ties here, and it is pretty level. So now I'm backfilling this whole system, and now it is ready to provide water to this camper. So the last thing before I sign off for this video is I need to patch this air conditioning hole on the pop-out of the kitchen. I'm using a scrap piece of metal siding from my shed, along with a piece of zip tape on the top and the bottom. Not too concerned about the sides because there's gaskets leaning against it. Anyway, if you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you next time here on Kind Heart Homestead.